Stephen A. I will start with you. Your reaction?
I have none other than to say good riddance. He deserves to be gone. He's not the man for the job, and that was clearly obvious. I certainly don't celebrate somebody being fired at any point, particularly during the Christmas holidays. But last checked, he'll probably be getting some money. He'll be able to afford Christmas gifts and to pay his mortgage. He'll be fine. The bottom line is this. They got the second worst offense in the NFL, fourth worst in yards allowed, and more importantly, along the way, he has vacillated between incompetence, unprofessional, laughable, and then some. And, you know, the manner in which he has conducted himself as head coach of this franchise has been far less than stellar. He hasn't lived up to expectations, and he's literally a coach that's going to walk away from the head coaching job with the New York Giants, known for two things: throwing Eli Manning under the bus on far too many occasions and having slick back hair and wearing shades. That's it. There's nothing else that's remotely memorable about him. He needed to go. It's good that they made this decision now. And unfortunately, I suspect that it won't be the last move made.
This is not something the Giants do. The Giants haven't fired a head coach in season in over 40 years. This is very unlike them. But they've been doing some stuff that's very unlike them recently. It's good that McAdoo is gone. His team wanted him gone. They tried to get him fired by quitting on him, pretty obviously. But I can't help but to feel that he's also a bit of a patsy in this case. I don't think that the Eli decision was his. That when a head coach tells a player, give me the weekend to think about it, in any business, what does that really mean? It means the decision is coming at least partly from over their head. And it seems to me that this goes to Jerry Reese and maybe even to ownership. And here we have a head coach in McAdoo who's taking the fall. Think of how clean this is for ownership. Once McAdoo is gone, the streak is broken. Eli's consecutive game streak, which is a big part of why it's hard to move on from him. Seems to me that that ownership wanted to move on from him. Once the coach is gone, well, he did it and he's gone. Our hands are clean. You hear from Mary, I didn't know the way it was going to be handled, but he also dropped hints that he understood they had to take a look at what they had. And the whole problem in taking a look at what they had was that means Davis Webb. It doesn't mean Geno Smith. And then the comments that Geno made after the game going at Rex Ryan, you say, oh, my God, we just had a quarterback who would never make comments like that, like a leader, the kind of guy you want. And we sub him in for a guy who's not as good and doesn't really know how even to talk to the media. This is a disaster. So, yes, McAdoo's gone. That's good. But I don't think this is so clean for the Giants because it's pretty obvious that McAdoo was not the only problem. This goes to Jerry Reese and maybe even above Jerry Reese.
Absolutely. Ben McAdoo was going to be fired, whether it was at the end of the season or today, like it was. But I do believe you, Max, in saying I believe he was a bit of a patsy, a bit of a scapegoat in getting Eli Manning out of there. They said early on in the year they would evaluate everything at the end of the season. And then you have the Eli Manning fiasco. And Eli, he shouldn't be treated like that. And he handled himself in a way that shows what type of Hall of Fame character that Eli Manning has. But Ben McAdoo has been trying to get fired since he took this job. Early on in the season last year, even though they were winning games and they made it to the playoffs, he was throwing Odell Beckham Jr. under the bus. Stephen A. Smith mentioned how many times he talked about Eli in press conferences, very often not taking it up on himself, not being accountable, not being responsible for what's going on with his team. And it wasn't just about the play on the field. Every week we were talking about something different with the New York Giants, somebody else being suspended, someone walking out of a meeting, somebody getting benched. This team had no organizational control, and that was largely in part to Ben McAdoo.
Hold that thought, because we have more breaking news. Adam Schefter also reporting that Jerry Reese has now been fired as well, gentlemen. We thought this might be the next domino that would fall.
Well, that should happen too. He was part of everything last week. He's been a part of not putting this team in position to be good when you don't go out and get offensive linemen, when Eli is unprotected, when you don't find a way to get a running game. That is because you aren't doing the right things as GM, as a scouting department, and getting the right pieces on this team. This is a total team failure, and that goes from the owner to the GM to the head coach and the players.
Max and Ryan, I think it's important for me to say this because on many, many occasions we sit up here and we have to sit in judgment of individuals in terms of the job that they do. I'm one that's unapologetically in support of African Americans getting opportunities. Jerry Reese is an African American who failed miserably at his job over the last several years. And it's the right decision by the New York Giants, unfortunately. I take no pleasure in saying that. But sitting in this position, you can't sit up there and call out other people and the jobs that they are and are not doing and absolve somebody from flagrant inefficiency at his job. Jerry Reese, we've been waiting for the Giants to have an offensive line for about 5 years, a running game for about just as long. Eli Manning, even though he's dissipated and diminished flagrantly in some people's eyes, is one would question the amount of help that he has had. And as much of a joke as I think McAdoo is as a coach, there is no denying that Jerry Reese is very, very culpable in all of this as well. The New York Giants made the right decision, and it's important to say that in the interest of fairness.